My speech is about it takes a village to raise a child, and that comes from an old African proverb. And I wholeheartedly believe this to be true. Being a single parent of a middle schooler and having already raised one young adult, I know firsthand that leaning into community and widening your circle is an absolute essential part of parenting. How many of you feel overwhelmed as parents? How many of you are single parents like me? Some reasons to tap into a community could be to connect with others, discovering new interests, to learn a new skill or idea from a teacher or leader. These things can follow you well from young adulthood into your later years. It can shape and form who you become as an adult. Leaning into a community, widening your circle can look different ways for different people. It may be as simple as relying on your family more often than you normally would have, or a trusted friend, or it can mean leaning into a church community. In my case, I grew up in a church community, and when my first child was a toddler, I began looking for a church home where I felt comfortable and where she could be raised in a church setting, similar to how I had been raised, and where she could learn values and morals. As a notable church encounter I've ever had been a positive one, this required me to be brave and to take a risk. I think risks are involved when you reach out, whether that be to your extended family, to your friends, or as it was in my case, just kind of taking the brave step in reaching out into a church community where you don't know anybody. However, I believe that there's a risk for every new parent, that this risk is something that every new parent should take. Whether you are a single parent or not, your child will benefit from exposure to a diverse and rich social network. The first reason that you should tap into a community to connect with other families is that your children may have the opportunity to discover an interest within themselves that they might not have otherwise discovered from a teacher or a group leader in church. My oldest daughter, who has already reached young adulthood, has found that one of the relationships that she formed with a church leader in middle school still influences her in a positive way to this day. Her small group leader recently reached out to her and invited her out for coffee. Their conversation centered around positive subjects such as healthy body image and ways to serve and to build nonprofit organizations to provide opportunities to help the poor in our local communities. The conversation stirred an interest in my daughter that she had had at a young age for loving others and for serving in her community. And it reminded her of how much those things meant to her, and it was something she hadn't thought about in a while. She began talking to me about what that might look like to engage in a nonprofit as a young adult. I was pleased to hear that the positive and selfless pondering in my young adult daughter, who had reached an age where it's hard for me to connect with her on that level. So I was happy that someone else within our community was able to do that in a way that I don't think that I would be able to do that as her mother. So the first reason for community is to connect. Leaning into community will reduce stress on many levels. In the case of my daughter and her middle school experience of serving in soup kitchens and giving to the poor as an act of love, it took the focus off of her own problems and off of herself, and it was redirected in a positive way to helping others, which is a stress reducer in itself. How many of us can say the same? When we engage in conversation with others, it distracts us from our problems, the things that are weighing heavily on our minds, and it refocuses us onto the fact that other people have struggles as well, and maybe that we could be some sort of help by listening to them. In terms of stress reduction for parents, I know I spend a lot less time frantically running around from work to school to practice and so on and back and forth when I could rely on a trusted friend or someone in the community or the leadership to help with transport. Parent to parent stress reduction happens when you are involved in a community with other parents. You can share your stories and you can give and receive advice as well for parents of all ages, of children of all ages. Help from others creates more socialization opportunities. Help from others can also generate a strong sense of security and confidence. For homeschooling families, community is even more important because it reduces the feelings of isolation and it promotes a sense of healthy socialization. Being part of a larger community opens windows of opportunities in lots of unexpected ways and situations. For example, sharing resources like carpooling can save on gas. It helps to know that you can do meal exchanges or deliveries if, say, you're going through any type of loss, whether you've lost a loved one, you've lost a job, maybe you're battling a long-term illness, or if you are elderly and you live alone. Shared resources alleviate stress, mainly financial, like handing down clothes and exchanging um, meals among families saves a lot of money. The most important reason to tap into community is that children feel connected. They feel a sense of well being when they're connected to a community. It promotes confidence and a sense of security. My daughter was involved in many volunteer experiences throughout her time in church in our community. She helped with Homes for Hope, where we went out and we helped single parent and low income families with yard cleanup and home repairs. Here she learned how to drive a tractor and chop wood. All confidence building skills that prepare kids for things that they need to do in their adult life. Children develop a sense of belonging, which is a vital foundation to learn the building blocks of being a part of a larger society. When she went on a mission trip to a low income project development in inner city Chicago, she learned about a completely different culture and how she might become a part of a bigger story through connecting with underprivileged children there and creating art with them. The exposure she gained helped her become aware of a society larger than the one she had known, and she saw and learned about family dynamics that she had been unfamiliar with before. These experiences kept her engaged in positive activities and helped her understand the world around her in a new way, and has shaped the person that she is becoming in her young adulthood in ways that continually surprise me. So think about it, give it a try. I'm sure you know the feeling all too well of being overwhelmed, overworked, and stressed if you're any parent, whether single or not. Um, so it would be nice to meet someone in your community who brings you dinner unexpectedly, who is there to help out with the kids, or just invites you to talk it out, or to go on a walk while the kids play. It's always the little things that mean the most. We were never meant to do life alone, and what better way to avoid burnout than to lean into a supportive community? I think you and your child or children will be surprised at the many benefits, both long and short term, that come with taking the first step toward building into a bigger community. And as I said in the beginning, it absolutely takes a village to raise a child.